And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore, where we never sit out. We your hosts, MD and CD. What is going on, guys? Today we have NFL Draft Day 3 sleepers. Yeah, no, not round one, because round one guys, they're not sleepers. You could have a sleeper that people aren't expecting to be taken in round one, then ends up getting taken in round one. Maybe a Jordan Brooks from a couple of years ago. Um, who's that guard that the Patriots took? Mason Cole or Cole,
Cole
I don't
Hudson,
know.
or no, not Cole Hudson.
Gosh, from
Uh,
I don't know. I don't know. Anyway,
Cole Strange. Cole Strange. Sorry.
Cole Strange, because from Chattanooga, from the
Damn the
Nugs,
Nugs.
the Nugs. So yeah, we just got 8 players. CD picked 4, I picked 4, all for different reasons. We have a lot of different positions, a lot of running backs on here. This is a really good running back class, I think, personally. I don't think we have enough linebackers in here either, considering I think it's a deeper linebacker class than I think people would have you believe. But I like our list. I like our list. If you guys want more day 3 sleepers, look, there's a lot of them. There are so many sleepers out there, but we narrowed it down to just 8 that we wanted to talk to about today. CD, I mean, any other details on what we're doing today? I mean, that's pretty much it, right?
No, I'm excited. I'm a guy that loves day three of the draft. I sit down every Saturday and I turn it on. I've got a couple streams going. I'm trying to get everything because these are guys that like you grew up and maybe like they don't have the elite traits or maybe they do, but like and they're never put together. Guys you've been following for years now, or guys that come up out of nowhere, and it's just really fun. To me, I love day three of the draft, and hopefully we find some guys here that you guys agree are some gems for your NFL teams.
Yeah. I mean, gems, they're not always guys that they don't have to test well, but I think everyone that we put on this list tested very well, numbers wise. Would you agree?
Well, yeah. Well, part of it is like if you're talking about a day three player, like they have some sort of flaw, but if you're trying to find like value in day three, like to me, you could go two routes. You could go, an elite athlete, like we'll talk about a guy here soon where he's just a freak athlete and maybe didn't put the production together, but you're testing on upside, you're betting on upside with a low risk investment, but also minimally you're getting nice special teams returns, which is the point of if you're going to day three, you have to bring special teams value if you want to make the roster. And so that's why you have to have that minimum like athletic ability, but then you have some other traits that we see that hey, maybe this guy can bring more value than his draft pick may see.
Yeah, and some of this too is like strength of schedule has a big deal with it. Braxton Jones a few years ago from Southern Utah, insanely elite athlete, right at the left tackle position, got drafted in the 5th round, and he was starting day one. He was starting day one coming straight from Southern Utah. So some of these players also have strength of schedule concerns, particularly the first one that we're going to talk about, which I know you are in love with. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if you guys are watching this video, make sure you guys like the video if you like the content. It's that simple. It's that simple. We're gonna have more of this content, so you don't want to miss it. That means you gotta subscribe. That's what you gotta do. And comment too. Like, who do we miss? Do you guys agree with us on these takes? Like, what are we overlooking? Did we miss something about these particular players that is either shocking, good, bad, whatever it is? Please let us know in the comments. If you're listening on Spotify, we love you too. Just gonna let you know we have the production level. I think on this show has gotten better these last couple weeks. So I would encourage you, if you're on Spotify, of course, follow and give us a 5-star rating, and keep listening to us if you're driving your car to work. But I would encourage you to scamper over to YouTube, where we do some good work over there as well. So anything else, CD, before we get going?
Now let's get into it.
First player that we're going to talk about. Is this how you pronounce it? Dylan Lobby, running back out of New
Dylan
Hampshire.
Laube.
I'm gonna let you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna let you take this one over because you love this guy.
So I first found this guy when I was researching Max Brosmer. Max Brosmer was a big time transfer portal recruit, and he ended up going to Minnesota. And obviously, here if you're a listener of the show, that I'm a Minnesota fan, and obviously to do our segment in the show, like I really researched Max Brosmer, and he just popped off the screen. They played Central Michigan like their only D1 team they played this year, and he just popped or FBS. So he's from FCS New Hampshire. Didn't watch. I haven't seen a ton of New Hampshire film, if I'm being honest, especially during the season. But he was a guy that just continued to rise. Had an unbelievable Senior Bowl. He's the guy that can do everything, out of the backfield. Max Brosmer specifically loves to check down, and they really use that to their advantage at New Hampshire with Dylan Lobby, just doing things all over. At first, I was watching the game. I was like, is this guy a running back or a wide receiver? Because he had like double-digit catches. He was lining in the slot, out wide, in the backfield. I mean, he can do it all. And obviously, we talked about special teams upside. It's absolutely there, just because of his athletic abilities, but also I just he's awesome. He's got just beautiful bursts. I mean, Trey Benson's a guy that will not make this list because he will be gone well before day 3. But Trey Benson's a guy that has elite burst, and he was the only person that tested higher in that 10-yard split than Dylan Lobby did. And I yeah. Well, what do you got here?
Yeah, he's uh, just a weapon, dude. Just an absolute weapon. What I like about him too, his jawline. What are we even talking about here? That thing could cut diamonds. Are you serious? Also, too, like, look, as a Minnesota fan, I'm gonna ask you this: like, there is a large chunk of production from Max Brosmer that comes from Dylan Lobby checkdowns. Does that concern you at all? Because, like, I mean, how many of those, like, we're playing his highlights right now. If you guys can watch on YouTube, they're all checkdowns. They're all like just Max Brosmer checkdowns, and then Dylan Lobby just makes something happen.
Here's what I'll say: yeah, is it a little concerning? Yeah, I think Minnesota's using a little bit the running back more involved, but I also think it's like know your personnel, KYB, right? Like Dylan Lobby is one of your best players, some playmakers. Like get him the ball however you can. If I'm not going to force a throw down the field, when I can check it down to Lobby and they can do some real damage at 5'10", 207. I mean, a year ago he had over 1,000 yards, 1,200 yards on the ground. This year he followed up. He had significantly less carries, but he had like 700 yards receiving with 70 or almost 70 receptions. I mean, and yeah, 7 touchdowns out of the backfield too. And he can do it all, man. To me, I love it. And then this is why you love the draft, because a guy like this can go to the Senior Bowl and really shine, and then go to the combine and shine again. And then you look on his tape and he checks all these boxes. And he's a guy from New Hampshire that I don't know if everyone really thought he was going to be an NFL guy. And then all of a sudden, here he is, and we're talking about him because how much we love him.
Yeah, I mean, like Danny Woodhead, sorry, Dylan Lobby reminds me of a couple of different players in the NFL. I would say it reminds me of Danny Woodhead for sure in terms of like the receiving ability and the small time college. I believe he went to Chadron State. But those are two very different players. You know, like I would like this, like Dylan Lobby's kind of like your Alvin Kamara, like uh size, you know, and probably similar speed to Alvin Kamara, but he's just as shifty as Danny Wood is laterally, right? And obviously white receiving back. It is what it is. I'm
Classic.
making the
Yeah, no,
comparison, but
you have to.
I I don't think it's crazy to say that the pro comp there is kind of a mixture of those two, and he could fit himself in like third down reps like right away, I think.
There's an absolute niche in certain offenses that will love Dylan Lobby and quarterbacks too. But I do want to clarify, we're not projecting him to be Alvin Kamara, like top 3 running back at one point in the NFL in terms of a draft prospect coming out of Tennessee and prior from Bama. Like as Alvin Kamara, you compare their RAS scores and they're pretty darn similar. You compare their size, they're pretty darn similar. And so it's pretty it's nice. It's a nice, like, okay, yeah, here it is. You know, this guy's gonna have a role on any team he can carve out on. You know,
Yeah, 100%. Any other thoughts on Dylan Lobby?
I mean, multiple years of production, versatile production. I love it. Don't tell me, don't give me the he didn't play anybody. He played in the FCS. Blah blah blah. No, dude, that guy pops. The tape just pops. You go watch it. I mean, you're watching right now, and obviously he went with higher competition at the Senior Bowl, and he lit it up there too. So that's why I'm not concerned about, the jump from the FCS to the NFL.
Yeah, the 10-yard split, like you already mentioned, is just it's so telling of like getting from 0 to 60. Like, and I think that's so important for a running back, right? Especially like when you get to that second level, you shake a tackle, right? And then it's like how quickly can you accelerate out of that, to turn that 7-yard gain into a 25-yard gain? Like, what does that look like when you're hitting the hole? Like, how do you explode off that? It's like he's very good. And some of these running backs in this class are very explosive like that, but not they don't have the acceleration I don't think that Dylan Lobby has, which is wild because on the film it definitely shows. Like he's beating cornerbacks to the corner. He is absolutely outpacing any safety that's trying to catch him. Like he's a 0 to 60 guy pretty fast. Even though his top speed may not be as elite as some of the other guys, some of the other running backs coming out in this draft. But the reality is he very quick acceleration, very quick to get it to his top speed, which you appreciate a lot. The second guy we're going to talk about, let's head over to Virginia by means of Northwestern, a guy that, if you want to talk about terrible takes in the history of the show, the terrible take of mine saying that Malik Washington wasn't going to have a huge impact on this Virginia team was an absolutely horrendous take. Malik Washington was a stud this year. And he does everything right, by the way, too. It's not just he's really good receiving back, or sorry, really good receiver after the catch. Okay. He blocks very well. He's not like huge. Like, I think I compared him to like a bowling ball preseason this past year. Like, that's what his frame is. I mean, he's like 5'8", like 190 pounds. Kind of big. I mean, there are other guys of similar stature that we'll be talking about here in just a minute, but yeah, Malik Washington, I don't think that he's limited to the slot, even though he's really small. Like, he's physical enough to where he could play outside, I think. Like, but you like a guy that just has mega production, a lot of versatility, good testing numbers. His RAS score is 8.51, and his film is solid, man. Like, his only downside is his size. Am I right?
Yeah, no, his hands are great. I like this catching traffic when I was watching his film. Even like his feel for zone, and then especially in scramble drill. I mean, if you're watching Virginia, you know exactly what Calandria brings to your team. You're going to be in scramble drill a lot, and that happens in the NFL too. But he had great feel, moving around, making himself available, which is a really underrated trait. And especially if you're a guy who's going to be, maybe not an alpha wide receiver, especially early in your career, where you might not be the primary option. But when the play breaks down and the quarterback has to get to your read, and you have to make a move and make yourself available for him, that can be some really nice value. And I think teams can appreciate that. Yeah, why is he a day 3 guy? I mean, not the elite size you want, right? Not even good size, right? But I think his play strength just makes up for that too, because he doesn't get pushed around. No, and in the ACC, he had some good corners. He did not get pushed around at all. He's not an elite athlete. Yes, his testing numbers are good. But like the 4.47, I was expecting just maybe a low 4.5. I thought he kind of got chased down a couple times when he was being run down by some defensive backs. And also, this is just a deep wide receiver draft, so like they're gonna push guys down, maybe because in other drafts, maybe that they're an early day 3, day 2 guy, but just because you have so many guys in this draft, you're just naturally gonna see guys get pushed down later and get some value with that. Yeah, no, Malik Washington is awesome. Like you said, we owe him a huge apology. But to be honest, I think that bowling ball description is almost good. Like it's hard to tackle. Right? He doesn't get knocked off balance very easily. I mean, he's rocked up, right? I mean, pause, but he's rocked up for a guy of that size. And I don't know. I love it. Malik Washington production, feel for the game. I love it. And special teams too. He adds that value as well. And so, what's not to like there? Day 3.
Yeah, PFF has him ranked behind guys like Anais Smith, Brendan Rice, Jacob Cowling, Malachi Corley, Jamari Thrash. I think you could argue Malik Washington is better than all of those guys. Of course, the other guys have more size, but even Anais Smith, it's pretty similar build to Malik Washington. I guess you look at Anais Smith and you see special teams value there. Malik Washington, man, like, sorry, I'll let you take over right now. Whoa.
Yeah, you could. I will say you mentioned Malik Corley. That's an interesting like comp within the draft class. Malik Corley is a guy that came in a little bit shorter than maybe he was hoping to. He's a little bit bigger than Malik Washington, and people love him for his run after the catch and his almost Deebo Samuel type role he can craft in the NFL. And everyone's trying to find that guy. Malik Washington to me is a guy that is almost like if you want to get Malachi Corley in the 3rd round, you might as well wait and get Malik Washington in the 5th. And because to me the production's there. Anything you want to do, whether it's like screens or run him out of the backfield or whatever it is, slants and then check down routes, whatever it may be, motion, get him the ball in his hands and then let him create after the catch. He's so dynamic with it, and you saw that in a lot of his tape as well.
Yeah, dude, those scrappy kids from Georgia, man. That's what you get, man. That's what you get. I think he was a 3-star out of high school. I think he played quarterback in high school. I could be wrong about that. But regardless, he's a really good athlete and he's highly underrated. And I think that if teams need a receiver late, Also, too, I could see Malik Washington being good on special teams. Like, couldn't you? Like, he's a smart player. Like,
He
that's what
he
you
he
need.
re- he returned some kicks for Virginia this year. And also, real quick, if you're into advanced stats and all this stuff, like in terms of missed tackles forced, it's kind of a tough stat to really um track and keep track. But he was 35. He was 35. He was first for wide receivers in the country. To me, very telling. Elite run after catch. That shows and translates to the film.
Absolutely. 100%. Let's move on to another guy of a, I'm not even going to say similar build because this is a one of one build. Kamani Vidal. Kamani Vidal. This guy, his RAS score is 8.69. He's running back for Troy. Okay. And what's impressive about the 8.69 is like his size. What is he? 5'7", 210, 215 pounds. That is nuts. That is nuts. That is nuts. I mean, when you played in high school, you played at 5'7", but you played at like what, 160, 165 in high school?
Listed,
If
sure.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
I was
listed.
yeah, no, yeah, to me to be 5'7" and 213, and a lot of people are like, oh, like it's small. Like you see that, and you look at his RAS score, and you're seeing the big red, and it's like, to me, like I don't really mind if you're gonna be a short running back, use that to your advantage. Beef the fuck up, right? Excuse my language. Beef the hell up, and still have that juice, which he has, and you see that in his 40-yard dash, like it in his shuttle time and his
His
vertical
10-yard split.
explosiveness ridiculous, ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
And also like to be 213, it's how hard it is to tackle that. Just a straight. We talked about Malik Washington being a bowling ball. This is just an absolute just center of just small, short center of mass and just oh, it's got to be so hard to tackle. Come on, Vidal. I did not envy the Sun Belt for having to deal with him.
Yeah, I mean, like to me, is this Doug Martin with more juice?
I mean, I hate to say that because Doug Martin was awesome. He was
He was awesome,
unbelievable. But
and
I
he went in the
love the
first
Doug
round.
Martin comp.
He's got
But
like
yeah,
similar size because what was Doug Martin? Doug Martin, I'm looking at, he was 5'9", like 225 pounds. So that, I don't know. He's a little bit bigger, but Kamani Vidal's got even more juice, man. And he was the nation's leading rusher, like, and for good reason, too. Like, yeah, he was running behind a good offensive line. He was playing in the Sun Belt, but Sun Belt had some dang good defensive lines. Dang good defensive lines. Look over at Texas State. They were like second in the country in tackles for loss. James Madison, they had an absolutely unbelievable defensive line. So like, it wasn't like he was just playing bozos. He played Kansas State, I believe, this year as well. Like he wasn't like those people that are like, oh, he played in the Sun Belt, uh, cherry picked, or sorry, I don't know the right word, but basically just stat boosted right from the schedule that he had. But he actually had a pretty decent schedule. I would argue better than some Power Five conference running backs.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, to me, yeah, you think about guys like with the frame and the projection that Kamani Vidal has, that translates. There are roles in schemes where he's going to be super, super advantageous. Do you want him in Miami, right? Where he's, maybe we're not running up like these long outside zone. Not necessarily. You want him going up and down and really getting north and south
How
and
about the
using that
Cowboys?
explosiveness and power. Yeah. That's everyone's like Jonathan Brooks in the second round. Kamani Vidal day three is an unbelievable steal to me. I know that the running back position is being devalued, but I do think it's kind of coming back and devalued in the first round. That doesn't make him less valuable. To me, if you can get a cheap, young, fresh, team controlled, friendly contract in the third round for running back, super, super, and he's gonna be ready to play right away. To me, I love his vision, his physicality. That stuff translates right away to the NFL.
Yeah, I could see like a team like the Packers using him. I could see a team like the Cowboys using him. I could see the Buccaneers. I could see them using him.
Yeah.
I I love Kamani Vidal. When you put his name up there, I thought, I was like, wow, you stole one of mine because he is absolutely unbelievable, and he should
Yeah.
be noticed by people. I know we're talking about a lot of running backs here, but he's a stud.
And people look at size and be like, well, maybe he can't, carry the rock. The dude carried the rock a ton. They relied on
Juice.
him heavily this year in the Sun Belt, and for good reason. And like you said, and they almost struggled kind of offensively early in the year, right? And they kind of once they started giving them the ball over 25 times a game, then they just hit the ground running there in the Sun Belt and really got after it.
Yeah, and it's like at that size, like could he improve in pass blocking? Like, is he going to be a third down back? I don't know, but there's a lot of need for early down workhorses. Now he's already got a lot of tread on his tires. Don't get me wrong, but that doesn't mean he's not a good player, right?
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's part of the reason why he's not a day one guy per se, because he's not going to be a 3 round or I'm sorry, a 3 down back where he can, do everything. But like we said, like there is niches and there is roles early down where he's going to be super, super productive and just an absolute pain for defenses to have to tackle all game.
Let's move on to Washington State's Brennan Jackson. You were high on Brennan Jackson preseason. You've been high on Brennan Jackson postseason. Why don't you fill us in on what you expect from Brennan Jackson and why teams should take him in day three?
Well, to me, he's a guy. He put up good testing numbers for sure, but I wouldn't call him an elite athlete. His 40-yard dash, his long speed was pretty impressive, and you saw that at times. They took advantage of him. He played edge for Washington State, and they even dropped him back in coverage. He had that athleticism to do some things creatively for that defense there, Jake Dicker. But there's a reason why he maybe doesn't have elite upside in terms of day one, day two projection, where like maybe he can turn into an alpha number one edge rusher for your team. But to me, he's absolutely a great number two or even number three rotational guy for you, and that's where you want to find this in day three here. He's really, really good against the run. To me, I was pleasantly surprised. I did not remember him being that good against the run when I was watching Washington State during the season. Going back and watching the tape, I mean, he put up great film early down against Jordan Morgan. And Jordan Morgan's a guy in Arizona, first round, early second round pick for them at left tackle. And going to this pass rushing, first of all, multiple years of production there, like that. High motor rusher. To me, I mean, yes, he's got some moves. He converts speed to power. They lined him up like almost like a yard back. It was a little weird how they did that in their scheme, but allowed him to get some leverage and to really go up and under or speed to power and all that good stuff for your defensive end there. But yeah, to me, he's just a guy. If I have to bet on some guys day three that I just know are going to find roles in the NFL for a long time, Brennan Jackson's one of them, and that's where I think the value is in him here.
Yeah, my thoughts are it might not be early, but if you get the right coaching and give this guy a bag, with his speed around the edge and that bend, like he's not like insanely explosive, I would say, like he's not going to like shock like Trent Williams at the line of scrimmage, but he's good and he's had good production against some pretty good offensive tackles. There were some really good offensive lines in the Pac-12 this year, like really good, like exceptionally good. And I thought he played well against almost all of them.
Yeah,
I thought he
and
played well
even
against almost all of
Washington.
them.
I'm sorry, even Wisconsin too. Wisconsin's going to have some draft picks on their line, and then even next year as well, with Melman. So yeah, to me, I just super impressed with Brendan Jackson.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, like what I'll ask you this: what is making these edge? What is different about Brennan Jackson that like what does he not have that these for other first round edge players have?
It's well, one like you look at a guy like Latu, where like similar age, similar athleticism profiles and all that stuff, but like you mentioned his bag is unbelievable, really good. Can counter, do everything you want, and he also to me I think Latu is just a little bit better athlete than Brendan Jackson is, especially like they talk a lot about your hip or your core rotation and strength that you can have while you going on the bend, right? If you're looking on YouTube, I'm trying to do it where you can still stay low and really cut the corner. And so you're not just being washed away. Um, he maybe doesn't quite have that, and maybe doesn't quite have just the ability to just win against elite offensive linemen like whenever he wants, or maybe not that quite potential. But there's a lot of value in having a number two guy or a number three guy that can come in early downs and he can spare and save your guy to come in and really get after the pass rusher on third down. But to me, I mean, against the run, that's what I was impressed about is how well he reads the play, how hard he works in the run game, and especially you got just his feel for the overall flow of the play. He just always ends up in the right spot.
So I'll give you a player comp and I'll see if you agree with it or not. Michael Clemens.
Yeah, out of A&M.
Yeah.
Yeah, that absolutely guy multiple years of production in college, right? Maybe on the older side, right? If I'm
High
correct,
motor. High
high
motor.
motor and a guy that's just going to carve out a role in the NFL just as Michael Clemens did. And Michael Clemens went day 3, didn't he?
He went day 3 and he started right away and he played really well. So, and he's still playing well for the Jets, I believe. I believe he's still in the Jets. So, either way, yeah, Brennan Jackson, player to watch out for on day 3. Just hope that your team picks him and not your rival.
Exactly.
Moving on, let's talk about Jalen Ford, linebacker out of Texas. RAS score of 8.21. Not insanely testy, but here's what I'll say. And I put him on this list, right? Because I did want to highlight a linebacker because I do think that this linebacker class is deeper than people think. And I think Jalen Ford kind of gets buried beneath those other linebackers. Look, he's experienced. He really improved his run game, especially like this past year. Was very productive there. Really good in pursuit. He's got good speed. He's all right in coverage. He's had like 1,000 coverage snaps his entire career, right? He's experienced there. So, I mean, look, when you're looking for a linebacker, sometimes it's not always your most explosive linebackers, right? Sometimes it's not always your most productive, which Jalen Ford was a pretty productive linebacker at Texas. But sometimes it's just experience. It's speed to the football, it's instincts, and I think he has all of that. I really do. I think he can solve. I think he can carve out a solid role. I believe Cowboys pretty adamant about interviewing Jalen Ford because Lord knows that they need a linebacker. Well, Lord knows that they need a lot of things, but I think that would be a really good fit for Jalen Ford. But what are your thoughts on Jalen Ford?
Yeah, like you said, just highly productive guy, veteran who got better over his year. To me, I'm gonna bet on that. And yes, maybe the elite end, athleticism might not be there, but also his broad jump was pretty darn good to me. And I love that explosiveness to have that quick, especially trying to cover these just elite, freaky tight ends that are now all over the NFL. And then also your shuttle time, 2 scores that were really, really good for him. And you talk about like his hips to be able to move around in zone coverage or to be able to trail a tight end or whatever he has to do within that. So yeah, Jalen Ford, I, I liked it. I was not thinking about this, but you put him on there, and I was not going to complain at all. He's got the size that is big enough for you at 240. Plays with plenty of play strength. Yeah, I like it, and especially you mentioned against the run, getting better at like that's important, especially trying to carve out a role in an NFL roster.
Yeah, and I think he's versatile too. Like he lined up on the defensive line and he rushed the passer sometimes, and he was fine at that. Like he's not very bendy, but he's quick. Like which is enough sometimes. Like obviously he's not as bendy as Michael Parsons, right? And Michael Parsons, like uh, I would not profile these players similar in any way, right? But Jalen Ford can rush the passer. He can be in coverage. He is a good run defender in the interior. Like he just is versatile. So like I feel like that there's a role for Jalen Ford somewhere, you know. And I know he's going to be like late. Like he will be late. Like we're talking because linebacker already is a devalued position, uh, as we know it. And it feels like that there's so many other linebackers, stand-up linebackers that already have uh, a role, that already have uh, or maybe are more proven or more athletic, higher profile guys. But I think Jalen Ford is solid, man. I think he's solid. He's coming from an Aggie too. So uh, high praise for you, Jalen Ford. High
That's how you
praise.
know. That's how you know. And yeah, a lot of these PFF has them, in their late two or in their early 200s, and that's especially for a linebacker like big board, you might be early 200s, but in terms of overall draft value, like you said, you're looking at end of sixth, 7th round pick for you. Got a question about special teams here, especially for a linebacker. day three linebacker carving out a role. You think he has what it takes to be a productive special teams player?
Yeah, I mean, experience is the big thing on special teams. Like if you're coachable, and I haven't heard anything negative about Jalen Ford in with that regard. Um, I mean, when you're 6'3", 240 pounds, and you kind of got wheels, and you're really good in pursuit, and he's a good open field tackler, by the way. He's a good open field tackler. That can do you well on special teams. That can carve you out a role there. But here's a list of some linebackers that PFF has rated higher than Jalen Ford: Steel Chambers, J.D. Bertrand, Michael Barrett. I mean, are those guys significantly better than Jalen Ford? I don't think so. Sure, maybe there might be a tier when you get Cedric Gray, Tommy Eichenberg, Jeremiah Trotter, Junior Colson, Edge Cooper, Peyton Wilson, right? But I think he can find himself. I think he will get drafted. I think he will get drafted, which it might not happen. Like that there have been bigger surprises, and it might benefit Jalen Ford to not get drafted. It has with some people in the past, so we can kind of pick where he goes, pick the situation that fits him best, and we'll see. But I think a team should take a shot on Jalen Ford. Moving on, let's talk about Tyler Owens. This is the this is the weirdest player. This is the weirdest player that we're talking about today. Well, weird, and I believe that he has a conspiracy that he believes in the conspiracy that birds don't exist, that they're just tools that the government uses to spy on us. And the reason why they sit on power lines is because that's their charging station, which, as funny as that is, uh, that's not why I put him on this list, right? He tested nuts. Now at the combine, if you were following the combine, you probably know that he pulled his hamstring running the 40, right? So it wasn't able to, it would have been a historic combine. It would have been. Like this guy just tests off the charts everywhere. So, but if you take his average of like other places that he tested, East West Shrine Bowl and all that stuff, he was nuts. 10-0 RAS score, probably would have been the best testing safety that we've ever seen come out of college. So like, why is he a day three guy then? Why is this guy who just tested lights out, that runs a 4.3, possibly sub 4.3 40, can jump out of the gym? Why did he fall? Why is he a day three guy? Well, I will say the film is not spectacular, and the production is not spectacular either. However, I have heard that his leadership in the locker room was fantabulous, and he's a hard worker. I don't know how well he's going to pick up these defenses, considering I don't know that he did a great job of that at Texas Tech, but it has to be worth a shot, right? Like at worst, you have an insanely athletic special teamer, right? That's just flying. Now I know the kickoff rules are different, but a gunner, tell me Tyler Owens wouldn't be an absolutely awesome gunner.
No, absolutely. He's got the size too, like 6'2" is big for a safety. Yeah, you mentioned the production, the film, not great. His missed tackle rate is over 17.6%,
Yeah,
which is
it's
about probably about double what you wanted, almost double what you want it to be. But it's interesting because I mean he hasn't played a ton of football in his career, even though he was an older guy, right? I believe he's fifth year guy coming out of Tech. I mean, he only played, about 200 snaps a year ago. He played, about 500, 600 this year. So I guess this year he finally got into a rhythm. And obviously, there were times where he flashed some good things, but also more often than not, it was not great there in the back end for Texas Tech. But also they moved him around. They had him in the slot, they had him playing in the box, in the deep, which is what you want to do with an athletic guy like that. But I do think where a guy's trying to find his niche in a role and how to play safety in college level and at the next level, you kind of want to settle him into a role and really let him learn that before you kind of move on and just throw him into the fire. I will say like he seems like a nice like almost like a dime back piece too for you, like end of the roster, right? You need that 6 DB coming on, and he's a guy that can just really fly around and just do whatever see ball hit ball type thing, and you're not worried about him getting beat over the top or missing an assignment because you have five other DBs all covering, and that can kind of make up for his lapses at times. But he can really go make a play. hit stick a dude. Yeah, I mean, the RAS just speaks for itself. Sheesh, man. I mean, that broad jump is crazy. I, wow, wow.
Yeah, he's nuts. He's nuts. And here's the thing. I'm talking about day three sleepers. He might not get drafted. Like if you watch his film, like and scouts might get scared of that. But also too, you better believe if he does not get drafted, there will be plenty of teams clamoring, right, to try to sign him as an unrestricted or as a free agent, keep him there on the practice squad. I I have a feeling that teams are going to take a chance on him. He's going to have a chance to improve in some capacity. So the reason why he's a sleeper on here is because he could hit. Like, and if he hits, you have just an absolute freak. The film totally
And
scares you, which, like, by the way, like I'm a film guy. Like I would rather trust the film than the numbers, right? I would much rather trust the film than the numbers. But the ceiling on this is stupid, right?
yeah, and well, when you're projecting, I mean, like you said, there's two ways to go about a day three guy where you're getting a guy, a known commodity, where you know it translates to a certain niche or role on your team. And then there's a projection where you can just take a low risk flyer on a guy like Tyler Owens that can really get after it. And I mean, his arm length is what is it, over 33? I mean, yeah. And also like guys like Tyler Owens who need time to develop and reps and coaching, like guys like him get more opportunities than other people because they understand the physical. You just can't teach that. You just cannot teach what he has physically, and so they give him more time than maybe another day three guy or another unrestricted free agent or a UDFA would have in his position. But because of his athleticism, because the value he brings special teams wise, immediately he's going to get chances, like you said, in the NFL. And if it doesn't work out, it's not because nobody's trying. It's just because it wasn't meant to be, whatever it may be. But yeah, man, wow.
Yeah. Let's move on though. Let's talk about another guy that tested absolutely freakishly for his position, Isaac Garendo. I love Isaac Garendo. I love him. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Not everyone loves Isaac Garendo because they're like, oh, how come he couldn't carve out carries with Braylon Allen and Jawar Jordan? He should have. He definitely should have. Like when he got his opportunities, he was so explosive, so explosive, and that shows on his 4.33 40-yard dash, his 1.51 10-yard split, his shuttle, his three cone, and like on film, like I've heard analysts say like, oh, on film he doesn't move laterally quick enough. Okay, but when his acceleration, like when he hits that top, there's no catching this guy. He's just gone. And he moves that way for a guy, I mean, 6 foot, 220 pounds. You have no questions about whether or not he's going to be durable. You have no questions. Well, actually, I think he did get hurt at Wisconsin. Am I correct in that? I'm not sure.
I
Doesn't matter
yeah,
to me.
no.
He is a absolute freak of nature. When he hits that hole, like if he gets by the second level, it's over. You know, it's over. I really like him a lot. Um, I believe that you like him a lot as well. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah. Oh, like again, like we said, like you just can't teach this amount of explosiveness. And yeah, like people knock him for not carving out a role against Braylon Allen. And Braylon Allen, by the way, is going probably in the second round in this draft pick and was one of the best running backs in the Big Ten, stepping on campus at 17 years old. And also Jawar Jordan, another very highly productive running back for Louisville. And you saw later in the year, like they just couldn't keep Garendo off the field. Like it was just like we have to give him touches because he averaged over 6 yards per carry in his career and over 6 yards per carry this year at Louisville. Yeah, to me, we did the combine reaction, or you did the combine reaction on Grendo, and now we're doing this video. He's a guy like you talk about my guys and or our guys that you think you're just willing to bet on more than most people. Grendo's the type of guy, and also like you're seeing like like A Chain, Devon A Chain, right? Like he came in and no one's like everyone's like, well, I don't know if it's gonna translate. It's a little bit small, blah blah blah. But that explosiveness, like you saw that in an offense where they really took advantage of that, and he was unbelievable. Him and Raheem Mostert. I mean, my comp for him is kind of like Raheem Mostert, right? I guess a guy
I
that
like that.
maybe didn't have the production you wanted, but in certain schemes, the wide zone schemes, You get him on these wide zones, these slants, and you just let him go. You turn the corner and just see ya. And he's also got the size too at 220. At 220, running a 4.33. Yeah, to me, I do think he will get better between the tackles, and he'll get better vision wise, maybe. But to me, I just think at a worst, I mean, he has to go to the right team, right? Like if you're the Ravens or if you're the Bengals or like maybe you don't want a guy like him where you're running between the tackles, the power zone or power gap um, scheme. But if you're like the Dolphins, the 49ers, like you've seen them just take these guys and just plug and chug and they just plug and chug and they just go nuclear. And then you're like, where do these guys come from? Like this guy didn't do that in college, but Grando, you saw it on tape, like at times, like he did. And yeah, he's one of those guys I just think is going to outperform. Like some people are just better in pro than they are in college, and part of that is because of the scheme they're in, and they just develop too. And I think Rena's going to be the guy, like you said, that's just going to be better in the pros than he was in college.
Isaiah Pacheco split carries at Rutgers. Just letting
Yeah.
you guys know. Kenyon Drake was what, third string running back in Alabama when he got drafted?
Yep.
I mean, there are guys all the time that get buried on these depth charts for whether it's a good for good reason or for bad reason, right? Like sometimes they just pop in the NFL. That also means that he does not have a lot of tread on his tires. Not nearly as much as some of these other guys. Like Braylon Allen's got tread. Even though I know he's like, what is he? Is he even 21 years old? He's probably like 20 years old, 19 years old.
Yeah, yeah, I think he's 20 right now.
Yeah. But he's got a lot of tread on the tires, you know? Jonathan Brooks, injury concerns, you know? Just saying.
Less than 200, little over 200 rushing attempts in his career.
That's that's fresh. That's fresh right there to me. I love Isaac Guerrero. I think he's a stud. I think any team's gonna be happy to get him. Let's move on to our last guy. Let's talk about Matt Lee, center for Miami. I really like Matt Lee in terms of his athleticism. He can move, man. He can move. He also did a good job in some big games. He played against some really good defensive line. If you're watching this right now, you're watching him play against Texas A&M. Sure, he lost some battles to McKinley Jackson, right? I would argue that Matt Lee's weakest part of his game is probably his first punch, right? His raw strength. But it feels like these centers are getting smaller and faster. And being able to get to the linebacker, right? Moving like guys like Jason Kelsey, like that's a big deal. That's a big deal. So a team like Philadelphia, right, who relies heavily on the tush push, yeah, Matt Lee might not be your guy, right? But maybe your team like the Seahawks, and you just want to take a flyer on a guy because you desperately need some interior offensive linemen. I don't think Matt Lee is a bad guy to take a flyer on at all. He can also play guard too. Like he's flexible that way.
Yeah, I love. I mean, the explosiveness shows on tape. It shows on the RAS with his combine stuff, and he's just again multiple years of production. He was at UCF, and then he's at Miami, and he was just doing great things. Like you said, like he played some really, really good interior D lines. Texas A&M, very, very good. North Carolina has some dudes up front. Clemson has some dudes up front. Florida State has some dudes up front. Louisville has some dudes up front. Like these are guys where you saw him play against these really, really good talents and other NFL prospects, and he's still holding his own. And to me, I don't understand. Like, yes, maybe run blocking limitations and that in certain schemes for sure, but to me, like you are getting an elite pass blocker, right? And yeah, I don't know. To me, I don't see why he's a day three guy. I get the limitation wise, but you're gonna this is not a great interior line class, especially at center. And center's hard to find guys that can play. And I mean, if I'm the Bears, I mean, I need a guy that can come in and I mean, you look at Braxton Jones, like we talked about him earlier. He had some flaws and limitations, maybe strength wise, play strength wise, but like they've kind of coached him up. Your better technique becomes, more powerful hits and strikes. I think with NFL coaching and some weight room and nutrition stuff, like Matt Lee can become a really, really good center in this league.
Yeah, and also too, one thing that I really, really like about players a lot, and I think it goes overlooked a lot, Well, I'll talk it in the context of offensive lineman, but this kind of applies for any position. When you move up a level of competition, because remember, he was at UCF. They were not Power Five. They were in the American. When you move up a level of competition and still play at a very high level, that makes me feel good about the next jump that you make in competition, right? Like me saying, like me knowing that, hey, you can make that jump to that next because you've done it before. I've seen you do it. And I think it's going to take the right team to draft him. But there's no way that Matt Lee goes undrafted. I know that guy like Luke Whippler like fell in the draft as a center for Ohio State, but this is different. Matt Lee's a better athlete than he is. Yeah, granted he didn't play on Ohio State and he didn't play in national championships or college football playoffs or whatever. Matt Lee still played some pretty high level competition and did very well. And he also moves too. Like he did very good. They had a lot of schemes in that Shan Dawson offense where he's moving out and he's blocking corners on wide receiver screens. And he can get out there, man. He can get out there. Or when he's pulling and he's taking out linebackers, man, he's a good football player. I like Matt Lee a lot. And we talked about him a little bit too before the season. And part of the reason that we were high on this offensive line was because Matt Lee was at center, among other players, right? But I think this is definitely a bigger loss than Javian Cohen, right? On that offensive line, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and to me, it's weird that like center gets undervalued, but as a fan of a team that has struggled to snap the ball, right? And you saw even in the college with Alabama, right? And Seth McLaughlin just struggled to snap the football. You've seen it with the Bears. Their center play has been awful. Like that, Matt, like getting the first how you start every snap. They're touching the ball every single play. I do think that center is undervalued and it's kind of ridiculous because first of all, yes, like athletically limit like you want the freak athletes playing left tackle. That is a harder position to play, no doubt about it. But also like it's tough. Like not everyone can snap the football every single play perfectly and then still set their alignments and also make the calls, do all these things, communicate with the quarterback and the other lineman. And Matt Lee's done it over multiple teams, multiple years, multiple schemes. I mean, totally different offense from Gus Malzahn to Shannon Dawson. I mean, similar principles, but you can thrive in two different schemes like that. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, you're telling me like is Dylan McMahon that much better of a player? Is Tanner Bortolini that much of a better player? Even Drake Nugent. Like, is Drake Nugent that much of a better player than Matt Lee is? Maybe.
I cannot
Drake
say with
Nugent's pretty good.
confidence.
But like I think there's so many arguments to be had with some of these centers that are ranked over Matt Lee and like a lot of these draft profiles, these draft analysts, these draft experts, whatever. I think Matt Lee is awesome, and I think any team would be happy to draft him. Actually, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say get him the right scheme, get him maybe not large. Like if you run a lot of zone, I would say, yeah. I actually it depends. It's like it
I want to
depends.
move it in space. I want to move it in
Yeah, yeah,
space
yeah.
or getting like creative screen games. Like if you enjoy that, to me that's where I think he fits.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in to this episode, Redshirt Sophomore, Day 3 Sleepers in the NFL Draft upcoming. If you guys like this video, make sure you guys like, subscribe. These are just some rules we have around here, right? If you like the content, you gotta like the video. Comment, let us know, like, hey, what are some players that we missed? Obviously, there's a billion players we could have talked about, but if you guys want to hear about more players and what we think about them, let us know in the comments. Do we miss anything on these guys? Quite possibly. And make sure you guys stay tuned because there's gonna be more NFL draft stuff. I mean, it's a couple weeks away. It's a couple weeks away. And then all of a sudden, then it's all eyes on CD and I are going to start trucking forward with our season previews and conference previews, team previews, win totals, bets, everything, you name it. Also, too, stay tuned for NFL draft because we're going to have some best bets on here. Let me tell you, the NFL draft is like the one time a year where the bookmakers know as much as we do. Information is power, right? You can find some really good value, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that if you guys are all interested in that. CD, anything for us on the way out?
No, no, appreciate you guys watching. Like Matthew said, like and subscribe. We're continuing to push forward and we hope you enjoyed the content. Let us know in the comments what you think, as always.
Absolutely. We'll see y'all in the next one.